Hey, Chris Sensei here from Growing the Edge. I'm going to try and make a whole bunch of sense in 5 minutes because 2 wasn't enough, 8 was too much. So here we go. This is how my mind works. So I was doing some exercises today. I need to try and do some every day. And I've taken a break for a while. And actually, I felt better. Some of my pains healed up. And it reminded me of, is it David Brailsford, the performance cycle coach, who was talking about, or somebody, you have to take a break. You can't just exercise every single day. So I took a gap, and that gap kind of improved things. And it got me thinking that, say if I didn't exercise 2 days a week, then what I've got is I've got a cadence. I've got 5 and then 2 gap and then 5 and then 2, and it carries on. And what that made me think about is the fact almost that those 2s and those 5s almost form a pattern, that you've got effectively the 2s are between the 5, and there's a cadence of the 2s, and then there's a cadence of the 5s, and it's almost like, you've got a little bit of extra dimensionality in there. And it reminded me of harmonics, frequencies and overtones, and it means my exercise, to some extent, one could argue, is a bit more musical, rather than it being just a synthesizer. It's got a few overtones in it, So the way my mind works, I'm thinking, well, actually, that's really similar to, say, the I Ching, where you've got the idea of is it the yin is the female principle, and it's line with a broken line, and then you've got the yang, which is a solid line. And it's almost like I'm playing with the fact that I've got, like a break, and it's similar to a break and not a break, not a break, and it's kind of starts to get into binary. And then it started making me think about the previous conversation I had here, which was about scale-free networks, and there the fact that you've got a clump of stuff and then a binary tree, and I talked about that, and you got a clump, but then if you magnify it out, it's like a fractal. You see other clumps and connected clumps. It basically continues, and it's like a polyfractal. And if you look at, say, Mel Conway's law, you can see in his initial paper, if you look at the black and white diagram of his initial paper, was it from the 60s, then you can see he's trying to get into this clump within clump within clump within clump stuff. So right, I'm into that sort of stuff. And so it made me think that actually, what are the clumps? So that reminds me of conversations I've had about holonomic mind with Brian Hennessy and others. And we were talking about actually the clumps are probably their interference patterns. So in other words, if the universe is made up of frequencies and wavelengths and they're all interacting, where there's a big bundle of them, it's like a knot, you get individuation, speciation, there's self, there's almost like a kind of a lump of something that's kind of all vibrating like that. And that clump is, that's interesting. That clump could be, it could be a resonance, it could be a shared experience, it could be, a stability of clump. And it reminds me a little bit of, say, moguls in skiing. So I suppose my model of the universe is that we're all skiing, not just us as individuals, but the particles in the universe and larger objects like my, the banana on my floor or one of my books. They're basically a bunch of particles, and actually they're probably a scale-free network too. And actually they're made up of clumps, and then the clumps within clumps, and those clumps are kind of either static or they're moving and changing a bit like music. So this kind of is quite an attractive idea, because it speaks of maybe the universe as being inherently musical. And actually maybe the idea of moguls and skiing is that actually those bumps that we're seeing, those bumps, whenever there's like a bump, glottal stop, or, a liminality for anybody who's into that sort of thing, or an emotion or a negative emotion or something like that. It's like we're hitting a bump, aren't we, in our, there's some resonance there, but it's one that's not mean we're diverting our course. We're not just going straight. It's like it's created a bit of a whoop, it's like a bit of a whoosh. And that's kind of interesting. So what I'm thinking of is really a good model of the universe is to think, basically the universe is one big winter sports resort, really, made up of moguls. But then, and we're skiing around this, and so's everything else. And actually what we're skiing around is actually other skiers, and we're seeing them as effectively moguls. But if we look at it in another way, we'll see actually we're actually skiing over lots of people who are all skiing in a certain way. And we're kind of, that manifest for us as a type of mogul, and that then seems to link all of these things again together, which all span from me doing a few sit-ups on the floor just a few moments ago. So that's how my mind tends to work. And we've got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're pretty much out of time.